Our next speaker got to have dinner with this gentleman last night, and he has a lot of stories. He is Mr. Andy Flinchbaugh. He and his brothers and sisters, his family, they run a fruit orchard in central Pennsylvania in York County. This is the fourth generation of this farming operation. That says a lot in itself, the fourth generation. Andy Flinchbaugh, they raise apples, they raise peaches, they raise small fruit, and Andy also serves as the director of the Pennsylvania No-Till Alliance. Please help me welcome Andy Flinchbaugh.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me. I think it's great to see that there's so many great things going on in the state of Virginia. Congratulations to the Lowe's. You definitely are role models for the rest of us, and thanks for leading the way for the rest of us up here. I was asked to come talk about my family farm operation. We're located in York County, Pennsylvania, and my goal was to talk about how we've really embraced diversification. Diversification in cropping sequences, cash crop that we're growing, and also really looking to add value to those cash crops and some of the things that we've done to add value to our farm operation over time. I do want to say that the things that I'm going to talk about here today are what we're doing. In no way, shape, or form am I trying to tell anyone here that this is exactly what you all need to do. But my goal here was hopefully to get you all thinking outside of the box. Some of the things that I'm going to show you here may or may not blow your mind. Hopefully not blow your mind, but some of the things that we're doing are things that, 25 years ago I'd have said, no way, we'll never do that, right? Okay? So I think it's important we all keep open minds. We're operating a business here to make money. We're operating a business so that we can support our families, grow an operation that hopefully, and I think speaking for many of you in the room, have a viable operation to transfer to the next generation. That's a big part of what we're doing on our farm. So I guess real quickly, I do want to briefly talk about what am I talking about when I say adding value. So I'm not very smart. I use Google a lot. So I went to Google. What does adding value mean? So Google told me that adding value means, and I really like this, contributing additional usefulness, quality, or benefit that enhances the net worth of a product, a service, a process, or a relationship. To add value is to improve something in a way that makes it more desirable, effective, or beneficial. It focuses on creating extra benefits that increase, and I think this is important, because sometimes we forget. We don't think what we're doing is maybe adding value, but to someone else it might be. It could be adding perceived value, or it could be adding actual value. There's a couple characteristics there. The two that I think that I really like about that are on that list there is differentiation. Adding value for us is making a product, a service, or an individual stand out. And then the last one there is sustainability. And for us, adding value is all about creating a sustainable business that we can transfer to our next generation. It's about offering long-term improvements rather than temporary fixes. We're not in this for tomorrow. We're in this here for next year. We're in it for the next 10 years. I'm in it for the next 30 years. And I want to see it go beyond that. In short, adding value is about creating meaningful improvements that increase appreciation, impact, or efficiency, making whatever you contribute more significant and benefit to others. And I think it's important if we step out and think about value and how we can add value, we can really look at what we're doing that we may not perceive having any value, we can start looking at ways that there may be a buyer out there that sees value in what we're doing and is willing to pay for that. The next thing I want to talk about is diversification. So let's define diversification. Here again, this isn't my definition, it's Webster's. And I really like this one. To diversify is to intentionally, and I say that, I want to point that word out, intentionally. We have to go out of our way. We have to make a point to create variety. This just doesn't happen. We have to do this intentionally. Whether it's by expanding offerings, spreading investments, learning new skills, or incorporating different, here we go again, perspectives. We got to take a different perspective. The goal is often to reduce risk. And that's what we've done. And that's what diversity and adding value has really done to our operation. It has reduced our risk. It's been a huge risk management tool that we've been able to utilize to cut out the highs and lows of agriculture. This concept highlights the value of not relying entirely on a single source approach, but instead embracing multiple avenues for growth and safety. So, having defined those, I want to introduce you to my family. My parents are in the very center of that. My parents are the third generation of Flinchbaughs, the farm. They've retired 3 years ago. Much like the Lowe's, they don't retire, they've retired on paper. They're there every day making everything work. My dad is my #1 combine operator and lawnmower around the farmsteads. I farm in partnership with my brother, Mike, and my sister, Julie. So the three siblings are all involved. My sister is on the left there with her husband and her family. My brother and his wife are in the middle there, in the back. And my family's, and my wife, Katie, and I, and our family there on the right. So, and I think one of the things that I want to point out, back in the late 90s when my brother and sister and I all decided that we wanted to make a career out of the farm, our farm was supporting one family. It was supporting my parents' family. And when all three of us decided we wanted to make a living out of farming, and we preferred to do it together so that we could, because we all had our own set of skills. And we realized that if we put our skill sets together, we could be more successful and we could go further together than we could each if we went out individually on our own. We had a very good operation to come back to. My parents, I got to give credit to my parents. They've always been very forward thinking. We had a transition plan in place for a number of years before we ever transitioned the farm to the next generation. And I think one of the things about being diversified, and as you're going to see as I give my presentation, the diversity has allowed my family to continue to function as a family and not have too many butting head moments. My sister manages the retail operation that we operate. We have an on-farm farm market. She manages all the social media things that we do, all the agri-education, and all the things, interactions we have with the customers. They stick me in the fields. I'm responsible for managing the row crops that we farm, and my brother manages our orchard and acts as our CFO. But we've been able to the diversity allowed us to all slot in an area and not have one sibling overlooking another and whatnot that could create a lot of the family dynamic issues that you have in family businesses. So diversity really set us up for, I believe, success as a family business. And one other thing, I put up here our mission statement. Our mission is to provide our community with food and connect them to food production systems. And I want to draw out the word food because when I say food, we're not just talking about fruits and vegetables here. We are talking about the crops, the field crops that we grow, the corn, soybeans. But I think when we go back to perspective, we look at everything we grow as food because food to us has more value than a commodity. And if we think of what we're growing as food, it's going to force us to look at things differently and hopefully get more value out of that. looking forward. So just to give you a little bit of context of where I'm from, that map is a hardiness zone, just your standard hardiness zone map, but we're located there where the red star is, a little below Harrisburg, between Harrisburg and Baltimore. And I thought it was very interesting looking at that map when I pulled it up. As far as hardiness zones go, we're fairly similar to a fair amount of Virginia here. You can see our average rainfall there. I also put up our rainfall for May through the growing season. And as we heard this morning, these things are just averages. And I think one of the biggest challenges we're dealing with is temperatures moving forward here. But just wanted to give you a little bit of context. And another piece of context that I want you all to consider, and this is something that we really consider in our operation, and we could all talk about how this is a challenge that we deal with every day as we farm in amongst a lot of different people. But within a 100-mile radius of our farm, we have 19 million customers. 100 miles is less than a 2-hour drive. We have a lot of opportunity. We are sitting on a lot of opportunity. Within 200 miles, there are 47 million customers within 200 miles of our operation. I would imagine you could pick out where you're at in Virginia on this map, and you could probably get pretty close to these numbers. I think that is a huge opportunity. We could talk about how hard it is to take our equipment down the road, how hard it is to farm around somebody's property that's complaining about the dust, complaining about the smells of our operation. But those people are interested in what we're doing, and we have to recognize that. They want to live next to our farms. Yes, we have to deal with all that goes with that, but they have a pocketbook and they're willing to pay for what we're growing. All of us. So real quickly, this is a picture of our home farm. We have about 45 acres in fresh market tree fruits. We have about 15 acres in produce. Most of the produce that we grow is your fall decoration type produce. And then we have a fair amount of acreage in flowers that we use for cut flowers. 2,000 acres of field crops, and we have an on-farm farm market there. When my family, my brother and sister and I all decided we wanted to farm, we had a lot of discussions around the family kitchen table every time we were eating supper about how we were going to generate enough income to support 3 additional families. So, this is an old picture, but at the time we had a contract hog operation. That was one option. We could build a contract facility, vertical integrated livestock barn. We didn't own a ton of land at the time. We only owned 120 acres. All those 120 acres were in 3 different tracts. Nothing was contiguous. So we felt we were going to face a long uphill battle if we went that route with our local community. We did have orchard. We were growing some specialty crops. We were doing a tiny bit of direct marketing off the farm. And, we were fortunate enough that around the 2000s, there was a great interest in beginning to grow in the community about buying food locally. And there still is a great interest in buying food locally. So we decided to really expand our farm market operations and sell more of the things that we grow that we were currently doing and sell them direct to our neighbors. And all the things that we've done and do here, they didn't happen overnight. This is something that we built on over the years. It's taken a long time to get to where we are, and who knows to where we're going to go. I mean, one of the things that I talk about that I say, we'll never do that. 20 years ago, I would have never said we'd have a corn maze. And I got to tell you, that's something that we thought would take a lot of technology to make happen. The first 6 years we did a corn maze, I drew it out on a piece of graph paper. I mapped the graph paper out on our cornfield, and I cut the thing down with a weed whacker. I didn't have to pay anybody anything to design the thing on a computer or anything like that, because at that point we had no clue how many people we were going to put through that corn maze. We thought we'd be lucky if we put 100 people through that corn maze. Anyhow, we had fruit trees when we were growing up, but one of the ways that we really looked at our orchard, we wanted to continue to grow fruit, but we had big fruit trees that were designed for growing processing apples. Low quality fruit. It's not designed to sell to the community. So one of the biggest things that we did, those big fruit trees didn't lend themselves, you needed to fight a ladder in and out of those trees. They didn't lend themselves to a lot of labor efficiency. So we really made an effort to transition our orchards to production systems that lended themselves to labor efficiencies, high density, small dwarfing apple rootstocks. Those trees lend themselves to high quality, direct marketed fruit. Do you see there? You can see how we're using platforms instead of ladders to, like, we'll use that tool to do all our pruning, do all our picking as it drives itself down through the orchard. But yeah, we needed a tree fruit that lended itself to fruit quality if we were going to sell and add value to that. We were selling apples to Nels's for $3 a bushel. That doesn't pay many bills. We currently sell apples for pressing into cider for more than $3 a bushel today. So that's one big way that we transitioned our orchard to get more value out of it. Another way, with the direct marketing that we were doing, we invested in a apple and peeling and coring equipment that allowed us to take our apples, some of our lower quality apples with some blemishes on the skins and whatnot. We take and peel those apples, we core them. We designed and built a dehydrator, and we dry apples and make a dried apple snack. And we can take those low quality apples and turn them into something that's worth more than the fresh apples that we're selling into our customers. We bring in apples from other local orchards. They bring their apples to us. We do the same thing to theirs. We send their apples back to them, and they can put their label on their apple and have their own snack. That's exactly what we do with applesauce. We take our apples to another farm. They've invested in the processing equipment for applesauce. So we take our apples to them. They make our apples into applesauce, and we can bring our apples back, and we can confidently tell our customer that that's our apples and those applesauce. We do the same thing with cider. But these are some ways that we've taken lower quality products and turned them into higher quality or higher valued products. I mentioned about our neighbors and our customers. It's amazing. We take it for granted, but our neighbors and our customers, those 47 million people, they want to be on our farms. They want to be on your farm. I would have never thought that someone would pay to come pick fruit. It's the job I hated growing up. Peaches are itchy. I didn't like that job. People are lining up to come to the orchards. They want to experience farm life. They have a growing interest in our food, in the food that they're putting in their bodies. And we need to embrace that connection. Why stop with fruit? One of the biggest areas that has been really growing for us has been cut flowers. Tulips has been our last newest addition. We do plant 2 acres of tulips for cut your own. So this is the 3rd year we'll be doing it. The first 2 years, there hasn't been a single stem left in that field. Unbelievable. Pick your own pumpkins, wagon rides, corn maze. story time in the orchard. People have an interest in what we're doing. And by embracing it, we're able to tell our story. We're able to make those connections with our customer, with our neighbors, with our community. One of the greatest benefits to that has been the relationships that we've been able to develop with our neighbors. You know, what once was an issue in us taking wide equipment down the road, or if we have a dust or a smell issue, it's not an issue anymore because we've created this transparency. We've opened up the farm, and we have excellent PR with our neighbors. I think that's an area of great opportunity. PR is going to be a big area that farms are going to really have to focus on in the future. So that was some of the specialty crop things we do. This is more in the lines of what I do every day. I'm responsible for the grain crops that we grow. When I stood back and really thought about adding value and diversification in our row crop operation, I linked that down to three things. And for us, that's been cover crops, crop rotations, and market opportunities that we've taken advantage of. When we first started cover cropping 25 years ago, we did it for all the wrong reasons. I got out of school. I wanted to grow our crop operation, but you just don't grow that overnight. You have to develop a name of yourself. You got to do a good job. You got to create credibility. So I started growing cover crops to differentiate myself. Very few people were doing it. Everyone else's fields are brown. I was like, well, I'm going to make mine green. I'm going to go talk to a landowner's going to come talk to me, or a possible landowner is going to come talk to me. If my fields don't look anything different than the next guy they're going to go talk to, I'm no different. I wanted to differentiate myself. So I got into it for all the wrong reasons. Once we started doing it, we started learning the benefits of what we were actually doing and building soil health along the way. And then we started managing them to give us more value in our pocket. The roller crimper there, that's my favorite tool on the farm. All of our acres are no-tilled, all the crops that we grow. We grow corn for grain, soybeans, sorghum, wheat, barley. We grow processing string beans, and we grow hay, a little bit of grass hay in rotation then too. But we do grow some sunflowers every now and then. I've grown buckwheat in the past for grain. But the cover crop roller is my favorite tool. My favorite thing to do is, I believe in getting that crop on the ground. I think we get more nutrient cycling. We can get that crop in contact with the biology that we've created in our soil, and we can get it cycled back to us much faster. But by getting it on the ground, because cover crop is such a long-term investment. If we want to build biology, it's going to take a long time. So for me, I wanted to pay back a lot quicker than that. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to get the most value and the most benefit out of those cover crops? For us, we've cut residual herbicides out of our cropping program, and that has been a huge savings for us. We've used the roller crimper, made sure we've had cover crops that went down, stayed down, and bought us early season weed control so we could cut and save in that department. The second has been in the fertility savings. As we get those nutrient cycling over time, we've decreased nitrogen applications over time, and we have all but eliminated potassium applications over time. The second has been in crop rotations. When I came out of school, we were growing corn, soybeans, and wheat. If you talk to a Midwest farmer, that was a diverse crop rotation. To me, I don't believe in any one rotation, but when we look at our farms, we look at them all individually. We're looking at ROI. What is the ROI of each farm individually? We farm 2,000 acres. We own 550. The 550 we own is in 8 different tracts. Nothing's contiguous. We have 45 landlords that are just all over the place. So we look at each farm individually, what its individual earning capacity is, depending on what cash crop we have there. One of the ways that we've really increased our ROI on our crop rotations is we've increased small grain. Small grains have worked really well for us. Small grains actually opened the door for us to do double cropping. We were growing milo, we were growing string beans, and we're growing soybeans, and we grow them full season. But how can we increase the ROI? How can we increase the value of that crop? Well, if we can grow wheat or barley early and grow those same crops that we were growing full season when we were only getting one harvest per year, if we can grow soybeans, milo, snap beans, or buckwheat or sunflowers after one of those and get 2 harvests in 1 year, that is the rotation that really works for us. And not just the grain crops that we're growing off there, we're looking at the straw as well. Now, when it comes to soil health, I know this is an area of opportunity for us. How can we figure out to maintain the value that we're getting and leave that straw on the ground? But this is where we're at currently. Most of the straw that we straw is sold by the ton. Large square bales, moved off to the farm. It's the most efficient way of getting it off. But a percentage of what we grow is in small bales. We fill up our bank barn, open the doors every day, have a cash box there. We fill it up, and the customer walks it out of the barn. If we're selling it by the ton, for example, we're selling it for $140 a ton out of the barn, where we put it in, the customer walks it out, we're getting $300 a ton. My sister that's running our farm market, which is 300 yards from my bank barn, she takes that same small bale. Here's what I'm talking about perceived value. She takes that same small bale, sells it at her market for $7 a bale, 300 yards away from the bank barn where I'm selling it for $4.50, and she gets $7 a bale. That's $465 a ton. She also sells mini bales. Those mini bales, there's 4 mini bales that will come out of each big bale. She sells those for $5 a bale, and so she's getting $1,330 a bale. I think it's all about perspective. And we don't have to do everything that we're doing this way, but every little opportunity that we have to raise value on what we're doing, because we're baling straw, but we're adding value to it by how we're presenting it and selling it to our customer. We're going to bale the straw anyways. One of the other things, we do grow some sunflowers. Harvest those sunflowers, we bag that sunflower seed up. In the barn, next to those straw bales, we'll have bags of sunflower seeds. The same people will come pick up bags of sunflower seeds for their birds that they're feeding. One of the areas, and my sister's like, well, let's sell those as cut your own flowers. How many sunflowers do you plant per acre? 21,000. Okay, I'll sell each one of those for $1 a head. And she's selling her sunflowers for, you can do the math, $1 a head, 21,000 seeds per acre. But it's all about perspective and what we're willing to do. I talk about double crop systems have really worked for us. One of the challenges, if we want to make sure that we cover all our acres in a cover crop, has been to make sure that we get a cover crop established. The double cropping system has us harvesting our crops pretty late in the year. So getting cover crops established can be a big challenge in that system. We do a lot of broadcasting of cover crops, and those crops that we are, the second crop that we're double cropping, it's worked extremely well. Cereals, we've had a lot of success with cereals, hairy vetch, and rapeseed. Those things have broadcast seeded very well for us. And it's beautiful. You'll cutting beans there, it looks like you're cutting into a lawn. There's something that can be said. Ray Weil talked about getting your cash crop established earlier. I think there's a lot of truth in what he's talking about there. So the last thing that I want to talk about is market opportunities. You know, one of the challenges in everything that we're all doing, if we're growing corn, if we're growing soybeans, if we're growing wheat, we are growing a commodity. And our buyer, your buyer, my buyer, there's no differentiation between my corn, your corn, your corn. If I take it to the mill or if I take it to the buyer, they're going to pay me on a 56-pound test weight. They don't care what the nutrient density is. They don't care anything about that. So how do we add value to that? How do we add value to that system? How do we get more for that? Any ideas on the difference between these three different pictures? If we went to market today, these are just some rough figures. You could put your own figures to this, but one of those samples I could sell for $5.25 today. The next one I could sell for $5.75, and the other I could sell for $10.25 a bushel. Which one do you want to sell? $5.25 is just conventional corn. $5.75 is non-GMO. 10% or 20% of the acres of corn that we grow every year is non-GMO. If we had a market for more, I'd grow more acres that way. You know, and our goal is to just increase that over time. But we'll take that 50 cents on as many bushels as we can get. The $10.25 it would be for certified organic corn. That's a pretty good price. In 2018, I had a landlord come to me. We were cover cropping. We were rolling the cover crop down. We were planting it. We were being conservative with herbicides. We were doing all the right things with soil health, and they came to us and said, "Hey, you know, we're really looking. We want you to cut pesticides out of your cropping rotation." They didn't care about synthetic fertilizers, but they wanted us to stop using herbicides and any pesticides if we were using them. So we took a long, hard look, and we said, okay, went back to him and said, okay, will you allow us to certify your farm organically? Because if we were going to cut herbicides and pesticides, or herbicides, pesticides out of our rotation, we were going to be putting ourselves at a big disability, but that would allow us to fall into a class where we could get ourselves certified organic. Took a long, hard look. The biggest challenge in all of this was that the landowner was like, but we want you to continue using cover crops and no-till. We don't want you to do any tillage. So in our infinite wisdom, we were like, yeah, we can do that. Let's try it. So we went at it. In 2018, if you're familiar with the organic certification, you got to go through 3 years. You got to manage your farm organically 3 years without being certified, and then you can be certified in your 4th year. So as we entered our transition years, we decided we were going to grow corn, soybeans, and wheat. They were the 3 crops we were most confident in that we thought we could make work in this system. We're going to use cover crops. We're going to grow cereal rye ahead of soybeans, grow a lot of biomass, roll it down, pray that we got enough weed control out of it to last until we had canopy. Corn, we were going to grow triticale and hairy vetch. Those two together, we felt we needed a cereal in there to make sure we got more ground coverage and longer lasting biomass on top of the ground. In addition to the hairy vetch, we thought the hairy vetch residue would melt away too fast for us. We paired triticale with hairy vetch just because those two, they hit the timing of, so I guess if you're going to terminate a cover crop with a cover crop roller without herbicides, a cereal has to be terminated when it's at 100% anthesis. So the head has to be dropping pollen. 100% of try to get close to 100% of the field dropping pollen. You can hit it, and then that you should successfully kill a cereal. Hairy vetch, the most optimum time for killing with a cover crop roller is when this plant is at initial pod set. So it's a little past full bloom, and you just start to see your first couple tiny pods. Hairy vetch and initial pod, hairy vetch, initial pod set, and triticale anthesis are the two species of a cereal and legume that line up as close as we could get them to hit those two things at the exact same time. So that was our rotation. Very first year, we grew 27-ton corn silage, 56 bushel soybeans, and I'm thinking, damn, we got this licked. Unfortunately, there was no premium for transitional corn, and for my first year, no premium from transitional soybeans. That stuff was sold into the conventional market. Year 2, half the acres were swapped. Soybeans, we grew 43 bushel soybeans, was actually able to market those into a transitional organic market. I got $18 a bushel for those beans that year. 21 ton per acre corn silage, yields were down. Starting to think, okay, well maybe this is what we're going to see. This is getting closer to what we're going to see. Still feeling pretty good. Everything's been working. That system of rolling those covers, getting enough biomass to buy us the weed control that we needed was working. Year 3, we went into we went into wheat. We grew 74 bushel wheat. I didn't have a transitional market for that. That was sold into the organic or into the conventional market, but still thinking that this is pretty good. This system might work. Year 4, first year that we're certified. We could, if we raised the crop, we were going to be able to sell it at an organic premium. So we went after soybeans in that first year. We were following wheat, but if you know anything about that year, I forget what year that was, organic soybeans hit $40 a bushel that year, and I'm thinking we are going to come out of the box rolling. We had rye planted. We had 85 acres of soybeans planted that year. I only harvested 6 acres of them, and those 6 acres only averaged 19 bushel the acre. We had a very dry spring that year. Year 5, we went into corn, and because we had such a poor crop, so the first half season's weed control is your cover crop, second half is your cash crop canopy. We didn't have much canopy in year 4, so we developed a weed problem. Year 5, we went out with corn. Our first planting, we planted May 31st. That's when our hairy vetch hit that optimum timing for rolling. We had a planting failure. There again, we were really, really dry. Problem was the fact that we planted May 31st. My organic, at that point I had to be planting certified organic seed. So my certified organic seed supplier was from Minnesota. Well, all the local dealers have already sent all their seed back to Minnesota for storage. So I had to, number one, it took us 10 days to realize we were going to have a crop failure. So May 31st. So now we're June 10th. So now I know June 10th we got to replant. I get on the phone with my dealer, all our seed's been sent back. There's nothing around. So now we got to get seed back from Minnesota, get it put on a truck, LTL'd back to us. 9 days later, I get the seed. Finally get time to plant, it's June 29th. I'm planting corn June 29th. Corn for grain. I don't have a silage market for organic corn. So June 29th, I really shouldn't be doing this, but it's my option. All that while, that biomass that we rolled down May 31st just had a month of full exposure to sunlight and is breaking down. So we're setting ourselves up for another problem, weed problem. We harvested all our acres that year. We averaged 44 bushel. The fact that we planted on June 29th, that corn was harvested at 31% moisture. We did that around Thanksgiving. We just had to get it off the fields. Year 6, I'd found myself a sunflower market for organic that I really liked. We went after sunflowers. We had 100% establishment failure. At that point, I wasn't willing to do a replant. We put the farm into sorghum Sudan grass and rode out, and we're hoping to, at that point, allow the sorghum Sudan grass to help us manage some of the major weed problems we had just created over the last 3 years. That year 6, with the weed issues we were creating, I knew we were going to have to use some tillage. We were going to have to use some tillage to right this ship, and it was going to take a multi-year approach of tillage to bring this farm back into production and keep ourselves certified organic. So I had to have a very tough conversation with my landlord about how I foresaw us having to manage the future. And for us, manage the future with tillage. That in year 6, I had to get permission to do some tillage on our fields to help us get the sorghum Sudan grass established. And then we went back to our landlord and said, listen, we need to have a talk about what our priorities are here, what their priorities were, whether it was continuing to no-till and use organic and use cover crops to build soil health out and use some synthetic herbicides and pesticides, or if they really wanted us to stay organic. The wheels fell off the bus for us in these 4 years. We had very dry springs those years. And the organic no-till is touted by some as a drought-proof system. But what I experienced those 3 years, our conventional crops, we were dry, we were abnormally dry, but we didn't have an issue because we were able to terminate and plant when we wanted to. In the organic, the fact that we wanted to stay no-till and we were using high biomass for weed control, number one, we had to plant when the cover crop said it was time to plant. When it was time to roll, it was time to plant. And all of that biomass, even though we were abnormally dry, dried our ground out as if we were in a terrible drought. We had the reason we had issues with establishment was our cover crop had dried the ground out so much that we would get germination, but our seedlings would die before they even made it out of the ground. They ran out of water, and we created a drought by attempting to manage in that way without tillage in our organic system. So sometimes things don't work out the way you want them to. It's not something, that was a tough decision. It's really hard to go through 3 years of transition, farming something organically, get yourself certified, and then walk away from it. That was a really hard thing for us to do. But what it did, the experiences we had farming that way, it was probably one of the best things we ever did. We learned so much about how we can farm and how we verified to ourselves that we can farm without synthetics. We maybe still want to have those synthetics in our toolbox, but we did learn that we could do it. And that's what led us to where we are currently today. We made the decision last winter to certify all of our row crop acres as regenerative through the Regenified certification process. Regenified is a private regenerative certification company. Currently, there are no markets for regenerative, but we wanted to put ourselves in a position to be able to add value to that corn that we saw earlier and jump on it whenever that market became available. We didn't want to have to wait a year or whatever it was going to take to get ourselves certified to do that. And that's kind of where we are today with our farming system. We firmly believe that the way we're farming with cover crops, really pushing for soil health, that we are creating a food product that is of higher value than traditional conventional crop. And we believe a market will come. There are markets on the West Coast currently for some of these products, but they just have not made their way to this side of the nation yet. But it will come. It's 47 million people within just 200 miles of my farm. I think it'll come. So, The one thing I do like about Regenified is the fact that it is a outcomes approach. So the thing that I struggled with, and farming organically was tough for me, not because we had to look at some weedier fields than our neighbors, but we had to follow a set of rules that we couldn't break. And it was hard to work within that dynamic. We was very rigid, and when we had issues like I talked about in years 4, 5, and 6, we had removed pretty much all of the tools in our toolbox that were going to help us get us through those years, and they weren't even an option. So the thing that I really like about being certified regenerative is an outcomes approach. Regenified, they really take a look at how we're applying the principles of soil health. And their goal is to make sure that we're achieving those principles of soil health. They're going to measure it. They're pulling the soil health test. They're pulling the PLFA tests and all those things. They're verifying what we're doing. And then they're certifying us based on where we fall, based on how our tests trend over time. So they don't care how we get to the end. They care about that we are getting to the end. They care about what the results are. So that's what I really like about the regenerative concept. And I really hope that we can get some value out of certification like this. So thank you. I took that picture the day before I sent it to you all to have on the screen. That's our tulip field for 2026. Come on out and see us in April. That's my contact information. We do a lot of farm tours on the farm. So if you want to come out and see our farm, you want us to walk around, love to have you out, love to host you. Let's have some more conversation about all the things we're doing. So thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Good job, Andy. I told you he had stories, and that's only a small amount of them. He's the man, I tell you what, 2,000 acres of grains with intensive fruit operation. That is a diversified farm if I ever saw one. But really great comments. All farmers want to share their successes, but sharing your failures and what you learned from those failures, that is also very important. Do we have any questions? We should have microphones available if you have questions for Andy Flinchbaugh in York County, Pennsylvania.
I'm going to mention real quick that Andy's also going to have a breakout this afternoon, so you can come and ask lots of questions. But I saw a hand up over here, so we'll take one now.
So a lot of these new enterprises for your farms require learning new skills, doing new research. So when you decide to start a new enterprise for your operation, what's the first steps you take to learning those new skills?
So I would encourage you, if you're a part of a farming operation today, and if you don't have one, I would encourage you to put a business plan together. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant. Think about what your mission is for your operation. The business plan is gonna encourage you to look at what your mission is. It's gonna encourage you to think about the core values. What are your strengths of your business? So then it's gonna talk about what you're currently doing, what kind of opportunities there are. It's gonna encourage you to kind of look at things that way. So then use that business plan to help guide you in as these ideas, as these things come. I gotta be careful. I went to Penn State, so please don't hold that against me. But anyhow, I went to Penn State for business management. I didn't go for agronomy. I didn't go for horticulture. I didn't go for soils or whatever like that. I figured I needed to learn how to run our farm as a business. And I figured my father could probably teach me a lot of those things. If not, there is a lot of help, aka this meeting right here, is a great example. The VANTAGE group is a great example of how you know, there's help out there in all the other ways that we need, you know, in the growing, in the nutrient management and all that. So if you're going to seek help, I would encourage you to get some business, even if it's not going to college, you know, look at getting some business courses and things like that, and strengthen your farm in that way.
Other questions? Any other questions? We have a lot of people that live within 100 miles of the Shenandoah Valley, all up and down the Commonwealth of Virginia. We do have a lot of people, potential customers. Thank you. Greatly appreciated. Another round of applause, Andy Flinchbaugh, York County, Pennsylvania.